So yeah, I'm actually kind of more just a social media user, nerd person. So I want to take that. I'm going to ask her to take a photo so everyone, you guys perk up for the afternoon and smile so I look like cool and important. Yeah. Hey. Okay, good. Phew. All right, that broke the ice a little bit. Just so you guys know, I'm like extremely nervous for some reason. I've never had to look up when I talk. My mom's here to see me speak, so there's that, and there's a lot of you guys. So yes, my name is Kate Buck. You can find me everywhere, Kate Buck Jr. No, I'm not a junior, even though my mom's here. Well, kind of. She's Catherine. I'm Kathleen. But I added the junior for branding, and it worked. Hey, Giovanni's here. Oh my gosh, I just got even more nervous. Anyways, so I just figured if I told you I was nervous ahead of time, that would like make it okay for me to be that way instead of me standing up here and pretending like I'm not. So a little bit about me and what I'm going to share with you today is I have been working in social media since about 2006. I spent 3 years in corporate studying social media and trying to apply it in our own online forum for that particular company. And then in 2009, I ventured out as a freelancer. So I just celebrated in January my 10-year anniversary of not having a boss. So that was pretty awesome. Thank you. And ever since then, I've been working with online entrepreneurs mostly, marketers, speakers, authors, coaches, and then expanded out from there. I've had the opportunity to work with just about every kind of business under the sun. And then in particular, I'll just say in 10 years, there was kind of a point where I felt like I got a little burnout. Maybe I didn't know the technology anymore. I don't know if anybody's ever been in that space. If you just eat, sleep, and breathe this stuff for long enough, eventually at some point you're like, what else is there? So a couple of years ago, I took a bit of a sabbatical and went and saw the world, which was pretty awesome. But during that time, I took on an agency partnership client that was a content marketing firm, and they were doing content marketing strategies for their clients. And they contracted with me to white label. I didn't have any clients, didn't have to deal with anybody, didn't have to sell anything, but I did all the social media strategies for every content marketing strategy that they sold. And within the 2 years that I worked with them and then trained their team, is the only reason that I don't work with them, to do them on my behalf, I created 300 social media strategies during those 2 years. So yes, I was traveling the world, but I was also behind my laptop in many of those places. But because of that, and I used to be the kind of person that really took a long time with strategy and thought it was complicated, and having to do so many of them, like the sheer number that I had to complete in a given week, and also just the variety of businesses that I saw behind the scenes for, really all these patterns started emerging, right? I started noticing trends. I started noticing like things that across the board as I was evaluating their competitors and what was working and what wasn't working. It was like these real key patterns started emerging for me. And what was beautiful about that is it was nice to know, like it felt good to come back and know that I had new information to share. It's really current and relevant to what's happening right now in the social space. I can't promise you this is going to work in a year or whatever, but it's just where we are right now. So that's what I'm going to kind of just distill for you, the things that I learned, and during those 300 strategies. So basically, I actually found 5 different types of businesses these are my categories. I didn't go to business school here or anything like that. So I found 5 categories of businesses. There's one that it was only about 5% of the companies that I audited and created strategies for, and it's not my preference. I don't have a lot of expertise there, and that is in that B2B, like industrial, technological, like that whole B2, really like high sales volume, whatever, B2B sector, technology, construction, that type of stuff. But for the general like B2B, B2C market, and particularly with so much crossover in that, there's a blurred line when you're dealing with a business, and a lot of entrepreneurs these days, so you're selling a lot to businesses, but that are actually just a solopreneur or a freelancer. I found these 4 categories that consumed about 95% of the strategies that I was doing. The other thing to note about these 4 types of businesses is that the things I'm going to go through with you are like the key points where I thought they all agreed, right? Where there was agreement that it was an essential element of the strategy that could be applied to any 4 of these. Also probably applies to that 5th one. I just don't want to stand up here and tell you that it applies to all businesses because I think that would be lying. So I don't want to do that. But it applies across the board. So I found the places of agreement. I'm not saying that there's not places in every single one where you'd need to like venture off and do something more specific. For instance, in local brick and mortar, these are some of the points where they agree with all the others, but I'm not going into detail for social media strategy on local businesses for doing like directory listings and that sort of stuff. So we'll just talk about the points where social strategy will work across the board for these types of businesses. Back when I got started, just so you know, I taught ballet before, so that's what my degree is in. So you're looking at a former ballet instructor. But in 2009, I started teaching myself, and along the way, I started documenting those processes, was what eventually now became Social Media Pro, when people asked me if they could see my processes and learn from them. But my point is that I started and I had about 10 steps. Every client had to go through these 10 steps. And then I just kept presenting it and teaching it and teaching it and applying it to my clients, and eventually boiled down to about 5 steps. And about 5 years ago, I partnered with Jesse Jameson in the back corner. He's my business partner, and he really actually helped me define that down into what we called the 5-step approach. And I thought that was really awesome, and I taught that for a really long time. And then during these 2 years, I spent a lot of time trying to use that 5-step strategy with all of these clients that I was working with, and I really found out that it boiled down to the know, like, and trust. So I just have this opinion of the know, like, and trust rule, actually, not even a formula, that pretty much how everything's ever been sold ever is through using this formula. Know, like, trust, and then it leads to a conversion. And when I say conversion, I mean, as a social media professional, it's my job to meet prospects out on social, introduce myself, get them to like me, engage, and trust me. And then from there, there's a natural extension that happens where they become a subscriber, or there's a clicker, so I don't have to keep going over here. Where they become a subscriber, they sign up for your messenger marketing list, or they register for an event, or they buy a product, or whatever that conversion event is that happens. But I don't like those words, and I wanted to come up with my own words that applied to social. And in addition to that, I also came up with the question of how do I actually measure each one of these things. So I wanted to take that and apply it to social, and also introduce how do you measure each one of those things. So every campaign I've ever worked on, not necessarily in this order, but definitely there's a component to each strategy that I do. One of these, or all 3 of these components exist. So the first one is grow your audience, right? More people becoming aware of who you are and what you do and what you have to offer. We'll talk at the end about measurement and KPIs, but obviously a follower is good here to count in some regards. Engagement was the second one, so that would be the equivalent of the like. So this is where we build rapport, affinity, positive sentiment. We have meaningful dialogue and conversation. We get to know each other. And then trust is really where I establish myself as an authority. I show that I'm credible. You'll use things like social proof, testimonials. And then there's a natural ask that happens right there. So if you know me, you like me, and you trust me, which I know sounds very basic, but if you grow your audience, you engage your audience, the next step is to invite that audience. Now, I like the word invite because I grew up in the era of social media where we were all told that you weren't allowed to sell. But at the same time, all of my clients were online marketers, all of your favorite ones that put the big red headline at the top and the pop-up and the autoplay video, right? Everyone knows those. Those are my clients, and they asked me, could I help them translate what they were doing into social media? And then I'd come to conferences like this, and everyone would tell me, don't sell in social media. And I had to sort of, resolve those 2 for myself. So I came up with the word invite because I think it's where we extend an invitation to say, hey, click this link, exactly, come read the blog, do whatever it is. And when you extend an invite to someone, it's truly, if you do it from a great place, it's truly just an opportunity. And they have the opportunity to say yes or say no, and you don't really have too much skin in the game there. But if you've done your job properly, oftentimes they'll be asking you for that. In the multi-level marketing space, of which I do have clients, they've coined a term, attraction marketing, right? So that's that whole idea of inbound marketing, where your people are coming to you to ask you for your solution because you've primed them so well in those first two objectives. Okay, so now you have the foundation of my strategy, so you kind of understand where my brain is. When someone comes to me and says, will you do a social media strategy? I'm looking at 3 components. And it is my belief that even though they're coming to me, asking me for number 3, this is probably where I started, and I jump in and go, okay, great, we're gonna create all this content, we're gonna engage all your followers, and we're gonna, post the links to your stuff. But I wasn't doing a very holistic job of setting them up to win. And also as a social media professional, and I'm pretty sure you guys, whether you have an agency or you work in a corporation or maybe you're a freelancer like me and you have clients, we're always kind of scrounging for content, and I really wanted to solve that problem for myself. I wanted to solve the problem of figuring out what to post, when to post, all of these types of questions that we're kind of always asking. And particularly for me, it felt like I was always begging my clients for content. What do we post? What do we post? So I decided to start working backwards. And I don't know if you guys were here yesterday and saw Perez speak. Really inspired me around branding. So while I'm not a branding expert by any means, I do know the importance of branding, and I want my clients to have gone through that process for themselves before I work with them. So we need to have already created all of the visual assets that we need and also the verbal assets that we need. So I really want them to take time to figure out what does their brand look and feel like, which is what a lot of people think about with branding, but also their messaging and their language and the words that they use and their voice. So I really want them to go through that process first. And for me, if they haven't, I refer them to Ree. Yeah, so we say, you're not ready yet, well, we have a partner, we want you to go through the branding process. Words about branding that I'm saying to you in different words. So good, I've done the branding thing and I have my messaging down pat, right? So once this is done, once they've done this, it makes my job so much easier because I'm not fiddling around with templates and in Canva and all the tools to kind of figure out what the language is. They've got a whole packet of it that they can give me, and now I can use that to make their properties consistent across all of them, right? It never fails that you are doing an audit for a brand and you find that YouTube site that was from 8 years ago that they totally forgot about, and it's still coming up like on page 1 or something. It leaves a question in the mind of the searcher, right, of the prospect, as to your professionalism or credibility. And so I'm always digging deep for these types of inconsistencies. The 6 elements that I'm for sure auditing are their username. We all know it's a challenge getting the same username everywhere, but it's definitely something to give a lot of thought to. I probably should make this 7 now. I just thought of one right in this very moment, and their hashtag strategy. So that would go right along with that. Their avatars, right? Are they square? Are they circle? Do they fit everywhere and look good? Cover images everywhere, right? So all the right sizes, desktop to mobile. What a pain in the behind that is, right? Looks terrible on desktop, looks great on mobile. Bio text, right? That little summary that goes back to the branding. They should really be able to say who they are in several different chunks, sizes of biography. And that's not my job as the social media manager. By the time it gets to me, like, they should be delivering those assets to me to use, right? I mean, of course I can assist with it, but I'm just really trying to delineate, especially after 10 years, right, in this business, of what's my job as the social media manager and then what exists over there on the client side or in the rest of the company. My favorite one, or the one I think I see the most, is that I think that the link in your bio is one of the most underutilized spaces in all of social media on the profile. So everyone just puts this naked link to their homepage without a call to action, and it's a waste of space. So you're saying, hey, this is who I am, and go to my website. There's really nothing super compelling about that. Instead of changing it, sorry, I should know, I wish there was a thing, sorry. So I'm gonna stand back here. As soon as I changed mine to, this is a branded and tracked affiliate link on my profile, and I changed my bio text to say, follow me, click here to find out how I make money and travel the world. Instantly my conversions increased from maybe I was doing like 10 sales a month through my Instagram account to about 10 sales a week. And I did nothing else to change my strategy except for give a very specific benefit to the person that is coming to check out my profile and why they should click the link, and it's going to a landing page that was specific to that offer. So this should happen really on all of your clients' profiles. If you send them to the homepage, there's just options, right? Unless you've got one of those splash pages and you're using your homepage as a landing page with a one specific call to action above the fold, then I don't even like the naked link in there anyway, because you should be tracking separately from each profile, at least with UTM codes. So that's one thing that I'm looking for in advising clients inside of strategy. So next, I'm going to move on to content. So I still haven't even gotten to social media yet, but again, before I get to social media, I need content to distribute. Content, like the word engagement, are two words that are kind of ambiguous. It depends on the context of the sentence that you're saying it in. So in this case, I'm talking about long-form content. I'm talking about everything that exists before social media. So social media content would be like your posts and your images and your all that. When I'm talking about content research and all the phases of content that we're about to go through, I mean all the stuff that happens before that. So your long-form YouTube videos, your blog posts, podcasts, ebooks, anything of substance. And again, before you can do anything on social, this content needs to get created. And so in the strategy, I'm going to talk to them about what I think they should be creating, and I'm also going to evaluate the content that they have already created to see if I can actually use it to distribute it in social. So my goal here is to really take the guesswork out of what to post, right? I said that earlier. And also to establish some search traffic as well, and really just solve that problem for myself of what to post. And so we have some consistency, and really in the client, the client is wondering what they should talk about too. So I start with research. I'm not the kind of person that I'll create a strategy from nothing. I do in here, which I'm not really going to talk about today, I do include oftentimes wildcard ideas. So every client's favorite word for me is how do we have something go viral? I think I call those wildcard ideas. That's something, if you think about it like a stock portfolio, those like your high risk stuff that I'm gonna hey, this could be fun, let's spend a lot of money, throw it at the wall, and maybe it's gonna do awesome, and in that case, yay, but maybe it's not. We're playing a little bit of a guessing game. My friend Elijah and I just had we reunited. We haven't seen each other in a while, and we used to have a debate about the role that your audience plays in something going viral. And so because the audience is such an important participatory part of something going viral, that's a variable that I don't entirely have control over. So those are wildcard ideas. Mostly what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna look for things that are safe bets, right? So best practices and things that, based on my research, I know will predictably and reliably grow the social media following, grow the engagement, and grow traffic to their landing pages. That's the bulk of what I'm gonna include. So those are your lower risk stuff, but they're tried and true, and you know that they're gonna produce a predictable result. So the first thing that I'm looking for, especially if you already have content that you're working with, is I'm looking for the stuff that's already proven. So I'm looking for stuff that is keyword rich, naturally leads to an entry point of their funnel. I'm gonna give you an example in a little bit, a really great example of this, and has already shown to rise to the top through their own analytics, both on their website and in social. So first stop is Google Analytics. Let me see over time, what is the best performing content? We read so much about tactics, and I usually say in the beginning in my little introduction, and I missed it, but Claire pointed to it when she introduced me, is that what I find is that most people are they're following Gary Vaynerchuk or whoever, and they're reading blog posts, and they're getting the tactics of what to do, right? And most people want to ask me what time to post and when to all this stuff, but they're not seeing the through thread, and that's really what I'm looking for here. And one of those tactics that's always getting taught is you have to consistently produce content, and so you have to produce it every week, blog posts, and every day you gotta have however many social media posts, and what happens is we end up creating all of this content and putting it out there, and we're on this constant content creation mode, and we don't ever really go back and look to see, well, what worked, what didn't work, and what could we actually like reuse in evergreen campaigns and set up a funnel or something that would last forever. So a lot of times when I'm doing a strategy, I find something here that's just untapped. It hasn't been used, and it's been there the whole time, right? So Google Analytics, I'm looking for, content that's risen to the top. Does it also, sometimes content that has risen to the top doesn't naturally lead to a funnel entry point. So then you have a question of, do you want to create something? Do you want to create an ebook from that blog post or that YouTube video that has all those millions of views? Then it would make sense to create a funnel entry point. So that's something that you're looking for. And bonus, of course, if it's search friendly, right? It's keyword rich. This is a little tool I use called Fan Page Karma. And for all of the platforms, you can go in and you get a evaluation of historically speaking, of all the content that you've posted. And and you're measuring it basically against itself. So I can see, and then what you kind of see here where it says top picks, top videos for whatever time frame you put in, it's going to tell me all of my top posts and topics. It's also going to tell me my worst ones, which is good to know. Don't do that again. Audience insights. So Jesse just spoke in the session before about audience insights, and so this is me wanting to go in and see if they've got an audience already. I want to see as much information about them as I can through audience insights, and if I don't have an audience for this strategy already, then I'm just looking into Facebook in general to see what my demographic and what my people are up to. This is a wealth of information that if you're not looking at audience insights to build your customer avatar, you're missing a huge opportunity. He's in the room, so I have to keep quoting him where it's appropriate. If he wasn't here, I'd probably just steal it all and pretend like I said it. But Facebook is the greatest social experiment in human history. They have the largest amount of human behavior data ever in the history of ever. And so to not be utilizing that information to drive your marketing would just be silly. This would really be the first stop. So this is a screenshot from a client who sells a supplement for women that are in perimenopause or premenopause or menopause. And so I can not only get an idea of what they're reading, but now I can also click through and see the content that these pages are creating. They already have the attention of my audience. So are they watching video? Are they sharing images? What are the topics that they're actually talking about? I can gather a lot of intel, and they already have the attention of my audience, so I would use that. And lastly, BuzzSumo, to take my keywords and see what is trending, what content is being created around those keywords, and that has been shared. So what has been viral out on the web for my particular keywords. And I love it when actually my client shows up in the list, so that's awesome. Again, like I said, I'm not a branding expert by any means, but I'm also not a search engine expert, but I know a little bit about keyword research. So what I want to do next is I want to find out what they should be. Again, this is all in an effort to figure out what content they should be creating so that later I can figure out what content so I can break that down and share it on social media. So I want to do some reverse lookup. I really like the word tracker tool, but the reverse lookup tool is being retooled. Sorry about that. Retooled right now, so they've taken it down, so I'm using SEMrush at the moment. But I do reverse lookup on my client site, and then I will also do it on their closest competitors' sites as well to get the keywords that they're tracking for, and just kind of get myself a cloud of words that are as high traffic volume as I can with the lowest competition, and looking at long keyword phrases that we can create content around as well that might be easier to rank for. I take those keywords and I go to this tool, which is kind of like my secret weapon. It's called Answer the Public. And you take the keywords and you put them in there, and the results that you get, anybody using Answer the Public? So it's not just my secret, okay, good. And I guess you can't really see the slide very well, but you put the keywords in and it will get the result that it gives you. It is coming from voice search. So what's beautiful about voice search results and understanding what people are asking via voice, you know, hey Siri, hey Alexa, is that when people do a search on Google, they're just usually typing in some weird phrase that half only makes sense. It's almost like in Spanish where you put the adjectives behind the thing and it's weird. But when you do voice search, you just ask the question. Hey Siri, tell me what year, you know, Benjamin Franklin was born. Now, if my keyword is Benjamin Franklin, I put it in on Answer the Public, I'm going to get the who, what, when, where, why, how about the questions that are being asked about Benjamin Franklin. So from a topic standpoint, I now have just in this one slide, and this isn't all, you get about 4 of these. You get with, without, is not, you know, lots of them. Basically, from this one site, I now have a year's worth of questions, where particularly if I, you know, of what my people, what my customers are actually asking to the search engines. So just answer these. That's it. Just create a content calendar for a year where you do nothing but answer questions. You can do this on Facebook Live. You can create YouTube videos. You can write a blog post. You can write an ebook. Like, there's infinite things that you can do once you just drill down the keywords and go to Answer the Public. So now that I have my topics kind of flushed out, and I want to move into planning how we're going to actually create this content. And I still haven't gotten to social media yet. I don't even know how many minutes. Oh, about 34 minutes. I need to speed up. Everyone, we need to start from a video-centric strategy. So what I mean by this is that, you know, we've been in a time where we needed to create videos from other things, and we're just at a place where everyone just needs to start with video. Just start with video. If you start with a video, I can do a process that I call socializing, which is where I break down that 10-minute YouTube video into infinitely smaller parts. And it doesn't work quite as well anymore, but all the way down to 140 character tweet. How many characters is it now? Is that bad that I don't know? Huh? 280 is double. Okay, well, it's stupid. It should be 140. Sorry. I'm sticking with 140. That's how you know I'm old school. I also still say fan page. Yeah, Giovanni's in that crowd. Huh? What is it called? I don't know. What do people call it now? A business page? Or just a Facebook page versus a profile? But you got fans before instead of likes. I don't know if you guys know that. We call them fan pages, and perfect example, what is it called now? We don't know. So it's still a 140 character tweet in my world, but anyways, I digress. Start with video. So if I start with the video, I can get it transcribed, I can write a blog post, I can strip the audio, I can create a podcast, I can take still images out of it and use those to create image posts. I can create 30-second, 1-minute, 2-minute videos, right? There's so much, and I can create 280 character tweets if I wanted to, which I don't. It needs to be consistent, and you need to think about your content. So video first, now it needs to be episodic in nature. So that whole thing about consistency is true, but the reality is that you need to be thinking about your channels like a channel. So you are now the OWN network, you're the outdoor channel, you are the food network, you are whatever. And people expect that your content is going to come out on a regular, consistent, timely basis. I'm running out of time, so I have stories to tell on this, but the bottom line is that when people sit down to watch TV, like let's just say that the news doesn't come on that day, what are they going to start doing? Surfing with the remote to find something else on to watch to get that news. And so if you have set up an expectation that you're putting out content and you don't, they're going to go find it somewhere else. So if you want to retain the audience that you have, you need to have regular, consistent, and episodic content. I talked about this already. So if you start with video, you can do a lot of stuff from it. And so it's just the best way. So if you created one 10-minute video per month, depending on the other factors that go into your social strategy, like the niche and industry and how it's all playing, one 10-minute YouTube video will provide me enough content that I can work for an entire month out of promoting that content and filling in the holes with engagement type stuff. Once I've created that video and I've posted it on YouTube and maybe I've stripped the audio and done the podcast, basically it does all have to come back to a blog post that lives on your site. This is your home and this is your hub. I embed all the multimedia content back into the blog post because it's not up to me to decide how my audience wants to consume my content. So that varies from person to person, but it also varies even within the person on a given day. Some days I want to listen to your podcast because I'm in the car and I have a drive. Lots of times I'm busy and I don't have time to do it, so I just want to skim your blog post. And if I'm sitting at my desk working and I just want some background noise, maybe I'll throw on your YouTube video and just have it playing in the background. So putting all that in one place and sending people back to that place from all of your social posts is key to what's happening right now, right, in social. So now we can distribute content. So now we can actually talk about social media. Aren't you guys excited? We have 22 minutes left. Once I've done all of this work, though, you can see that my job just got really, really easy. Basically, what I do is that content that we just created is what you see on the left, and on the right is my distribution methods. Now, I'm not suggesting that everybody has to use every one of these channels, but what I am suggesting is that the whole idea of using Hootsuite to just spray out one piece of content at the same time is completely dead. I guess there's cases in which I might utilize that strategy, but when I'm originally creating a strategy, I think one of the important things to do is to not consider the challenges. I actually don't create a strategy with my clients' challenges in mind. What I want to do is create the strategy from the perspective if I had all the time, all the money, all the resources, I had the best designers, the best everything, what would I do? And I create that first. At the end of this strategy, when I present it, then it's the time to start like chipping away, negotiating, doing some horse trading about where will we start, what's the low-hanging fruit, what can we take away, what will we not get any results from, what should we do when we hire a full-time person, all of those concerns can be addressed later. So in the beginning, I'm just evaluating which platforms I think they should be on. And then each piece of content needs to get created to fit that specific platform. Okay, so remember the grow, engage, invite? I didn't just share that with you just to share it with you. Here's where it comes into play. So at each stage or in each one of these objectives, the content that you create and use is going to be a little bit different. All that editorial content that you just created is going to get used in engage and invite, so in like and trust in different forms. Really, it's all going to get used in trust. So it's going to get used mostly in trust, but what we're going to do is we're going to make it a little bit smaller and use it in engagement, right? You know how people say, well, I'll wait, I have a slide about that. So for grow posts, we're doing the little tweets, hashtags, images. Who is tired of seeing social media quotes? Facebook, everyone's a Facebook philosopher. We're all tired. We have unfriended the person who posts social media quotes all the time. Yeah, too bad they work. That's why they're there. So this is the introductory. These are the icebreakers. We like to say that it's you can just drive by and engage with that post. And it doesn't take a lot of commitment from the person in social media to just like a post or share it or comment on it. It's like a proverbial high five to you or badge of honor or thumbs up saying, I identify with this piece of content. But really, there's little or no commitment from them in terms of their relationship with your brand at this point. In like content is where I'm going to start to share with them just a little bit more, but just a little bit, right? So, meeting somebody at a party, you don't tell your life story unless you're me, and it doesn't work very well. You just ask you just start by the little banter. That's what happens there. So this is why 30-second to 1-minute videos work, and they're really challenging to make, but this is why they work, is because it just gives somebody a bite-sized piece of content to consume, but what that does is it's another micro commitment from them that they're interested in what the full conversation is, right? And that's what we're looking for here, is these like micro commitments through this social funnel. And then in the last phase is where they're really diving in. They want to know more about the product, and maybe in the conversion stage you offer a discount, promo, something like that. That's kind of 101. You guys are pretty familiar with that stuff. So here's a case study. from our good friends here in Austin, Digital Marketer, and they have their conference Traffic and Conversion is next week. So these are kind of those first clients that I had the opportunity to work with, and thankfully they have moved away from autoplay and red headlines, and maybe not pop-ups though. Pop-ups work, that's why people use them. Even though you are not your audience, by the way. Just because you don't like something doesn't mean that you shouldn't be using it. So this is a like post, right? So this is just a fluff piece of content. My clients always fight with me on these. They think they're stupid and we don't need to do them. We don't need to use them. But what I'm trying to do is tighten up the relationship with my audience in the algorithms, right? So people use fancy words like timeline hacking or whatever. Basically, I'm just trying to use organic methods of engagement to tighten up those algorithmic ties to my prospects so that the next piece of content that I post will actually get seen. I'm notorious personally for posting selfies right before I post content, and so I did that this morning. I posted a selfie right before I came here, and later today I'll make a post where I invite people to hear part of this presentation if they sign up for a webinar or something, right? So I did that strategically on purpose because selfies are the #1 most engaged with piece of content in all of video, but in images, selfies are it. So it's a great way for me to hack into the news feed, if that's the word that you want to use, and get some engagement so that the next piece of content I post is more likely to organically be seen. I am going to talk about paid here in a second, don't worry, but we're going to start by trying to maximize organic reach as much as possible. In this same funnel, the next piece is my like piece of content. So this is the top 5 blog post ideas. Oftentimes I teach this funnel backwards because I'll show you that this is going to end up with an ebook opt-in, right? And so we're just going through it forwards for the experience instead of backwards. So this is the equivalent to me of saying, do you just have 5 minutes? Do you know somebody comes to you and they say, do you have 5 minutes? And you always say yes, but you know that they don't need 5 minutes. They want to talk to you for 15 or 20 minutes, right? Almost always. This is the equivalent of that. Do you just have 30 seconds? Do you just have 1 minute? Do you want to know just the 5 blog post ideas? Really, where we're going with this is later, I actually want you to read my blog post about the ultimate list of blog post ideas, and including possibly, oops, sorry, I wasn't sure if that was going to show up without a click. Including possibly going to my YouTube video and watching, well, only 2.5 minutes, but watching a YouTube video about it, right? So I showed you a 30-second to 1 minute video that just promoted. It's like the teasers, the news at 5, right? Coming up at 6. Don't miss it, right? So the 5 blog post ideas, if I can get you to engage with that, then I know that you're interested. You're more likely interested than somebody that didn't watch it to go to this next phase and want to read my blog post or watch this YouTube video. And then lastly, at the bottom of that blog post, there's a beautiful content upgrade, also known as an opt-in, that says, how about the ebook? You really want all 212, don't you, right? And this all started, it's just like it happens in the office. Somebody taps you on the shoulder or sends you a text and says, do you have 5 minutes? They really need 212. So what Digital Marketer did in this case study, right, is that they did keyword research to find out that blog post ideas is a hot keyword that has high search volume and it has low competition. They created an ebook and they worked backwards from there. How are you going to promote the ebook? Well, we're going to write a blog post. And how are we going to promote the blog post? We're going to create social media content. And they really didn't stop there, actually, because if you go out to the other networks like Pinterest and all that, they have social media content there. One of the other things to note on this case study, or on this study, is that the blog post was actually written in 2015. And this is the 2nd edition. They've updated it several times, and this is a campaign that I see usually run at least 1 time, if not twice per year for them. So these are assets that got created once from a research standpoint, and then they just get used over and over because who in this room would download, right, you're at Social Media Week, I'm assuming you're in this target audience, who ever struggled with blog post ideas? Raise your hand. Yeah, and you might download an ebook called 212 Blog Post Ideas. So if you're following them, they've hooked you. If you think about it as fishing, right? You put the Facebook or social media, whatever, is the pond, and you put the little bait, which is the I love marketing, and throw it out there. And then we're seeing what we can reel in all the way down here for email opt-ins. Now, organically, this works, but we all know that organic reach is challenging, to accomplish. And so the way I ensure that the people that engage in step 1 go to step 2 is with retargeting. So start with engagement retargeting, and that's really essentially what I'm trying to do is create audiences. So those engagement posts, when I tell my clients, is they're creating the audiences that later we're going to market to sell their stuff, right? So I first of all, boost all of my content because you've spent the time to create it. You went through all the process to get to the point where you actually posted something on social media. You might as well make sure that everyone that's in your audience currently sees it. And then second, when you move on to the other steps, let's retarget people to go back to that content. So I use the engagement. I should have put the little red dot around, or little red screen around it, but whether it was a video view or whether they interacted with the Facebook page or my Instagram profile, right, or just the post itself, I'm going to retarget them back to the next piece of the funnel. So if it was from the engagement post, I'm going to take them to I want to make sure that I'm going to retarget them with a 5-minute video. And if they watched not the 5-minute video, the 5 things video, the 30-second video, and if they watched that video, I'm going to make sure they get to the blog post. And if they engaged with the blog post, I'm going to make sure they get to my opt-in. And sometimes you can draw lines just straight from the engagement. I wouldn't do it from the engagement post, but maybe from that the 5 things video, I might try sending them straight to the opt-in page or straight to the blog post and skipping a few things or whatever. But ideally, this is how you should be thinking about each campaign that you put together. This is what allows me to basically streamline my content calendar. So I'm doing what I call splintering, which is starting with the ebook, ripping the ebook apart into as many pieces of content as I can, creating the videos that support it, create the blog post, create more images, create short videos, create as many assets as I can to just support that one piece of content. And then I just schedule them out at various times across all of my social channels. I also do the thing where I don't post one thing and have it go to everywhere at the same time, so I scatter them not only on the platform but also between the platforms. And of course you have different assets that you're putting on each. And then you fill in the gaps with your engagement content, so fill in the gaps with fun things to spark engagement, conversation, right? So those are kind of like hole fillers for me. The other thing that I recommend in strategy is that everyone forgets about the weekend, and I found that doing recap posts on the weekend at least, or scheduling something that is fun on Saturday mornings are the most active time. I think a lot of people don't check their personal, use that time to check personal email and catch up on social media they missed during the week. And the other time on the weekend is at Sunday nights, because that's the time where, especially in the professional space, people kind of start planning out their week. And also it's the time that people are double screening it up for that one last chance of freedom on Sunday night to watch whatever their favorite shows are or sports or something like that. So that's the times that I break my weekend distribution up in. So the last thing, how do you measure all of this? So pretty straightforward. In growth, we can measure likes and followers. You can also measure things like impressions and reach. In engagement, of course, likes, comments, shares, video views, post clicks. So I mean clicks inside the post itself, whether they click on a hashtag or they click to open it. I don't mean clicks to the site, that's different. And just your general engagement rate. And I really still like fan page karma for all of these stats, but of course, most of the platforms it's native as well. For the third phase, I really rely on traffic, and I have a theory about this that oftentimes my clients would be trying to measure me, the social media manager that they had hired and outsourced, on how many opt-ins they got or how many sales they got, and everybody's favorite ROI term. And what I found is that if I'm not responsible for the landing page and the rest of the funnel, then I can use those conversion metrics to inform my strategy, but I can't be completely measured on it because I don't have an impact on it. So if you're on a team where you have zero impact on what's happening on a landing page, but yet you're accountable or responsible or measured in your role by the conversions that happen there, I have a real problem with that, right? Like, it just doesn't work. So of course, that needs to be part of what you're measuring, but like whether I'm doing my job or not is, am I getting qualified people, qualified prospects to that page? So I'm like a bus driver, social media bus driver. Like, I pick you up on Twitter and I tell you where we're going. Maybe I'm more like a tour guide, and I drive you over to the landing page and I drop you off. At that point, it is unless I'm the one who made that landing page and I know about layout and copy and design, and I have my pop-ups and my red highlighted headline text and my autoplay on whatever. No, those things don't work anymore. But pop-ups do, I said that already. Unless I'm responsible for that landing page and everything that went into it, the psychology of how we put the avatar together, then I don't think you can really measure a social media manager exclusively on that goal. So I rely heavily on traffic and time on page, right? Because what I'm trying to show is that I found the right people in social to be part of our audience. I engaged them, so I primed them well. They're already set up, and now I showed them where they should go to get the answers to their information. And if I've done that job well, then I feel like, again, with that invitation, it's a natural extension that the conversion will happen, right? But it's not necessarily always my job, I think. I hope that makes sense. So if you have questions, I think I have about 5 minutes. Also, I have the slides up and a recording where I'm behind a computer screen instead of staring at your lovely faces. And so I probably was a little less nervous and said a few more things that might be smarter than what I said today. Also, my partner Jesse's presentation that goes hand in hand with this on the audience insights, like how to do the retargeting and all of that is in there. If you go to that URL, that's not an opt-in or anything. It's just there for you if you want the slides and stuff. So thank you very much, and yeah, appreciate you being here.